listen. She told me I had 3 wishes. When it falls off my wrist, those 3 wishes will come true. Do not cut it.
I think generally you'll find that the horror genre is confined to films, and it's really hard to come by serialized horror television that isn't either A, an anthology series, or B, a mishmash of genres like horror crime or horror genre or horror drama, because it can kind of be a slow roll to reveal things and scare people and have a convincing horror plot over 8 to 10 episodes when a 90-minute movie will suffice. It really seems like the only director who has that market cornered these days is Mike Flanagan. Other than that, I can't really think of any. And so it's because of this, I sort of look upon The Changeling as like a rarefied artifact, because despite all of its faults, I probably will continue watching, if only to see what happens, and if only because this is sort of very rarefied air that we're breathing with this show. But yeah. Welcome to Theater and Stream, a film podcast. I am Matt, and that is Chuck, and this is episode number 24. Let's dispense with all the formalities, folks. We've got a really weird one today. For our featured review, we're going to be looking at the first 3 episodes of Apple TV Plus's The Changeling. Now, you may be asking yourself, what even is this? I've never even heard of this show, and judging by the completely barren online discussion, it seems like you wouldn't be the only one. Let me sum it up for you. You adapt a book of the same name from 2017, you throw in a bit of Barry Jenkins, you add in just a dash of the 1980 George C. Scott movie of the same name, then you stir it up with some magical realism, maybe a little bit of Haruki Murakami, and you've got The Changeling. So if that sounds good to you, go back and give it a watch. For the rest of you, we're going to start off today with a bit of film news, plus one more look at the summer box office as we look at the results from the summer movie wager. Next up, we've got a mini-sized watch list, and of course, we're closing out the show the way that we always do with the Mentionables. Timestamps will be in the episode description. Please like and subscribe if you're watching, and rate us on the podcast app of your choice if you're listening. But that's the business end of the show. Chuck, I'll turn it over to you.
It's the age-old question, like if a streaming show, appears on a platform and there's no one there to watch it, does it still happen? There's kind of some metaphysical thing going on here where it's like if you aren't watching it, if you aren't fulfilling the prophecy in some way, then it's just collecting figurative dust, and it might as well not even exist. But at least some people supposedly are paid to watch everything so that we can better judge what we should or shouldn't watch. We do this for free. We give up our time. We give up our own dollars to do this. And here there are motherfuckers who are just giving away all their ethics and integrity for $20 or $50 a pop so they could jimmy the score for some movie that no one fucking watched or cared about could go up. We always knew this was happening, but somebody actually did the journalism and figured out that it did happen, and they published it in Vulture. Did this come out of left field for you, or is this you just kind of okay, yeah, we always knew this?
Yeah, it's interesting because every once in a while a story like this sort of rears its ugly head, and people often, say things like, "Oh, reviewers are paid off," or, and it doesn't have to be just money. It can be plane tickets, hotel rooms, a all-you-can-eat buffet at a premiere, early access to screenings, access to the celebrities that are in these movies, behind-the-scenes trips, stuff like that. And so people like to act like people are crazy for even suggesting that people like reviewers or influencers or even people that vote for like award shows are corrupt. But then we get a story like this, and it's sort of all sort of validated. And I'm sure people will, forget about all of this in like a month. Actually, I haven't even heard any traction that this story is actually getting, which is really sad and like really sad for me, because this is something that I've really got like a fire in my belly about, and yeah, it's pretty despicable.
The only person that I've really the only places I've heard discourse on this is in all of the like media skeptic communities you would expect it to. People like Chris Gore, or like the Nerdrotic, or the Critical Drinker, because that validates their existence. But Chris Gore was interviewed to be a part of a different article by this same journalist, supposedly, and it was going to be in the New Yorker as opposed to Vulture. So it downgraded, and he didn't quite go for the jugular like he was talking about. Gore said, like, he left a little bit, like on the cutting room floor that was juicier, because when you get down to it in this article, he's just going after this one like ad agency, and like in this like, and I guess they did take some steps. Like I think Rotten Tomatoes, they delisted some of the movies that. What is it, like, whatever the outfit, the ad, the PR company,
Bunker 15.
I was like, wait a minute, that sounds like Refinery 29 or whatever that fucking thing was, that weird like Vice offshoot that they had. But in this instance, they were like, what is this movie about? I always like asking this question, like what are we fucking talking about? Just like the time where that lady sued because Anna de Armas wasn't in the movie, even though she was in the trailer.
Oh yeah.
So like, what's the impetus? Like why are we doing this?
Yeah, so the movie we're talking about is a 2018 movie called Ophelia that starred Daisy Ridley, and it's basically one of those. I'm not familiar, I guess, with the Shakespeare story, but it's one of those like, Shakespeare stories set in modern day, but from the perspective of the female instead of the male type thing, or from the perspective, it's like a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead type thing.
It's Hamlet. So yeah.
So it's like, and basically what happened with this, if people haven't read the article, is that the movie originally got a 46% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is considered, rotten.
Pretty bad.
And and basically what happened was this PR agency called Bunker 15 started contacting reviewers, both who had already written reviews and reviewers who haven't reviewed it yet, and they offered the people who hadn't written reviews about $50 or sometimes a little more to write positive reviews, and then they offered the people who had already written reviews money to basically slightly tweak their review so that it would score as positive instead of negative. And so that's kind of what we're talking about here,
because it's always just this nebulous thing. Like what quantifies, if you say very negative things, or at least critical things about a movie, does that constitute what your overall positive? Does that become a rotten just because there was so much critique involved? Even though you might be like, if you're recommending a movie, can it be considered rotten when you get down to it? But I guess a lot of these, I don't read a lot of film criticism these days. How many people boil down like their whole like little essay to should you or shouldn't you see the movie? Like, more often than not, isn't it just people circle jerking still? So,
that's the trouble is, the logic for deciding whether or not something is rotten or fresh, I guess is what the other term is. It's obtuse and it's inconsistent, and it's like, because some outlets will rate something out of like 5 stars, and then some outlets will use a 10-point scale, and then some outlets will literally just say, I recommend this or I don't recommend this, and then some outlets will just dispense with all of that, and they'll just say, you know, they'll just write a written review and just say, if you want, you know, if you want to know if you should see this, just read my fucking review, and I don't need to give this thing some, you know, blank out of blank score.
I'm not going to quantify it, but that's ultimately the whole purpose behind these aggregators, to quantify the unquantifiable, which is this piece of art any good? You know, is this worth my time? And for them to be so deceitful, you know, to lie for maybe a grocery run or like a few tanks of gas, that's what you're gonna, you know, sell out your like everything for. I just can't believe it. I guess journalism is a fraught, you know, profession, like, as I know, you know, myself personally. But what do we do? Like you say, people are just probably going to carry on forward and just forget that this even happened. But because we've already talked about this, as like there's a slide in here that's going to come up, but like way back in From the Mezzanine, like episode 7, we had a discussion about this very thing in Wonder Woman 1984. Like I didn't fully watch the episode again, but like, what do you recall from what was said at the time when that was being exposed?
Yeah, so the other thing that this article sort of goes into is how studios sort of game Rotten Tomatoes to their own ends. And I mean, at the very core of it, Rotten Tomatoes is owned by Fandango, which is a company that WB and Universal both have a stake in. And so, I mean, that's at its core, at its very core, it is awful, it's rotten. But then on top of that, what you're talking about is when Wonder Woman 1984 came out, we had noticed that basically what studios will do in sort of collaboration with Rotten Tomatoes is they will post a small amount of positive reviews, like let's say like 10, and they'll get like a really high score, like let's say 89%. And then they'll keep it that way through like the opening weekend of the movie. And then suddenly on like Sunday night, all these other reviews will just pour in and it'll drop down to like, you know, like 65% and a bunch of negative reviews. And they do that so that they can basically ensure a good opening weekend. And also so they can put on their little TV spot trailer, you know, certified fresh. And then in the corner, it says as of, you know, such and such a date, so that they can get away with saying that it was fresh at one time or another. And so that's what we're talking about.
Deceitful practices. Terrible, terrible things. But I can't say that I ever really pay attention to the critical score much these days anyway. I find myself looking at the audience rankings as, you know, like nebulous and as gamified as they probably are. Generally, I'm interested in the contrast between the two. Because no one's paying the fans unless they're like botnetting it, I guess. Is that still something that can they fudge the numbers there even more so for the audience score? Or our audience is generally just really receptive as far as like what they like and don't like.
Well, I think the trouble with the audience score is there's so many more of them. So, you know, somebody can go on there and, you know, they might have not even have seen the film, but they just want to go on there and say, I don't like, you know, 1 out of 10 stars because I don't like this property, or 1 out of 10 stars because I don't like this actor or whatever. And so, I mean, yeah, they can game it, or, you know, they can do what you're saying. They could, you know, set up some sort of, bot account, you know, set up bot accounts, or, you know, pay a bunch of guys in India to write like fake reviews or something like that. So
have AI do it. For crying out loud. That's a phenomena that I've just been noticing more and more in general. Like half the shit on Reddit is just reposts from bots that are then identified and called out as bots by other bots in the comments. But then there's people engaging with shit, and it's obvious when they aren't real. So you have to wonder, like with certain movies, I think they can hide it, but it's kind of as fake though when you get down to it as those special Oscars that they give out for like the fan awards. It's all just bullshit, like to a degree. Really, they should just be ranking everything based on who makes the most money. Like the box office is the true champion, as far as that is concerned. And we have made it through the summer. We've made it through the blockbuster season, and it shook out in ways that no one expected. There was lots of crazy things that happened, Matt. What did we learn before we really get into where we shook out in the summer movie wager?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really no secret anymore. It was the summer of Barbie and, Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer did so much better than anybody expected. And Barbie also did so much better than anybody expected. But Barbie, I think, was a little bit more predictable in that it could have gone either way. It could have just completely bombed or completely gone bonkers, and it went bonkers. And, but yeah, other than that, as far as, looking at the top 10 of the summer, Sound of Freedom in there is interesting. The faith-based market is probably going to explode here in the next, couple of years. They're going to try and replicate that again, I'm sure.
Oh, there's all kinds of weird things happening in that realm. Angel Studios has a movie coming out, actually with a Michael Pena in it, about a Mexican immigrant who becomes an astronaut at NASA, like a based on a true story sort of a thing. So they're ramping up. They're going for the jugular, because that movie wound up smack dab in the middle. This was not on our radar at all, was it? Like, we couldn't even select this, for the summer movie wager. This is the darkest of dark horses because no one could pick it. And there it is, above Indiana Jones. It wound up actually making more money than Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
What the fuck is wrong? Like that ruined everything. Not having Mission Impossible make a Billy, which is what I was hoping it would do. Yeah,
it really makes you wonder if, because everybody thought, people saw Top Gun Maverick because of Tom Cruise, and now, you kind of have to question that logic a bit. Did people really see Top Gun Maverick because of Tom Cruise? Because they certainly didn't see Mission Impossible 7 because of him. So, yeah, it kind of goes along with that narrative that we don't have movie stars anymore. That movie stars are such sort of an antiquated idea, and so that's very, very interesting.
I think a part of it is that audiences knew it's not really the last one. There's a little bit of exhaustion built in there. If it had been a proper, conclusion to Tom Cruise's time as the blockbuster guy, then I think there would have been more of a draw to it. And then, the same way that Top Gun did. But that's the thing. Getting a new Top Gun movie is an event. We get new Mission Impossible movies every few years. That's also part of the problem.
That's true.
But as far as that goes, okay, I just want to ask you about Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. I didn't quite understand what that Bumblebee movie was supposed to be from a few years ago, but my boss went on a huge rant about this movie because he went to see it and then swore off going to any theatrical movies for the rest of the year because how much he hated it, because he's like a true blue 80s kid Transformers fan who watched them kill Optimus Prime in the Orson Welles movie, and had that burned into his brain. And he didn't spoil it for me, but apparently the end to this movie is pretty bonkers, and that it sets the stage for something that is kind of mind melting. Have you had that spoiled for you?
Yeah, I actually, this movie's on Paramount Plus. I actually watched it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just never talked about it on the podcast because it's really nothing. It was pretty bland overall, but yes, I do know what you're talking about, and yeah, you should spoil it for yourself because it is pretty funny. It's basically I won't spoil it completely, but it's basically Hasbro is going to be mashing another of their toy lines with Transformers.
Good. It's about time. They should have done it with Josh Duhamel when Michael Bay was in charge. Instead, we got that bullshit movie that The Rock had to franchise save from. My total was 36 points because I really screwed the pooch. None of my choices really landed. I think maybe one was pretty close to the mark. So yeah, my point total was really, really pretty low. 1597 out of the little over 3,000 players. And so, yeah, I don't get to defend my crown. Matt is now the official, theater and stream summer movie wager winner. And you scored pretty high there, 309. So what are you going to make me watch, my friend?
Yeah, so basically, if people don't remember or they weren't watching back when we did this right before the summer started, we basically, the bet was whoever wins gets to choose a film or, I guess a couple episodes of a show if you really wanted to, that is either under 3 hours, or it has to be under 3 hours, and it also has to be easily streamable or rentable. And so to that end, and because last year you were so nice to me by making me watch Babette's Feast. You were seeking to expand my mind rather than corrupt it. And so to that end, the movie that I'm going to have you watch this week is Terrified, the 2017 horror movie. And this is on... I've long talked about this movie, about how it's one of my favorite horror movies of the past, decade or so. And it's absolutely fantastic. It's very easily, rentable or streamable on Shudder. And yeah, I would encourage anybody to go out and watch it, because the guy who made it, his next film actually comes out in about a month. His name is he's a Argentinian director by the name of Damien Rugna. And his next one will be coming out, and it's called When Evil Lurks, I think.
See, I was researching this movie because I had seen that cover art. So thank you for that assignment. It was already on my mind. That's perfect. Well, time to move on to the watch list. I need to watch this because I remember the story when it first happened. What can you tell us about BSI?
Yeah, so BS High is a new HBO documentary film, and it is about this fake high school by the name of, what was it? Bishop Sycamore. Yeah. And essentially, this guy concocted this plan, this like career con man. His name is Roy Johnson, and he concocted this plan to basically create a fake high school that he eventually got to the point where they played like the top high school team in the country on ESPN and just got absolutely creamed. And afterwards, of course, it came out that this high school doesn't exist. There's no building. There's no like facilities anywhere. There's no classrooms. There's no teachers. This guy literally just got like a bunch of like low income, talented kids and basically said, like, I will pay for your education if you go on my high school team here. But then he just basically strung them along for like 3 years. And never gave them any sort of education, never gave them any sort of classes. Yeah, he just like literally just strung them along. And some of these kids weren't even kids. They were like, there was like 20-year-olds that were playing like other high school teams. And they were playing like other, but yeah, so this was, as far as it, the story is very compelling, but as far as this actual documentary goes, I'm a bit conflicted on it because you feel as if you're sort of complicit in this, because the documentarians, the two guys who did this, got like completely unrestricted access to this guy, this Roy Johnson, because he is an absolute like sociopath, and he sat down for them and answered every single question, every single hardball question with a smile on his face, because he doesn't care. If you watch this, you will find this out throughout the documentary, that he does not care how he gets famous. He does not care if it's infamous or famous. He just wants to be famous. And it's pretty gross, actually, some of the stuff that he says. And so, yeah, in that way, I'm a bit conflicted on it. And he has this incredibly chilling sort of like monologue towards the end of the movie, where he basically talks about how there are like thousands of him out there, like thousands of men like him, and they are all ready to take advantage of your kids to make money. And it's chilling. It's absolutely chilling.
What
And
the
so
fuck?
yeah, it's pretty fucked. And so in that way, you know, it is compelling from that aspect, but and the story is compelling. But yeah, just watcher be warned, because this will give you an icky feeling, definitely. But yeah, I'd give it a soft recommend, probably.
In the 80s, this would have been a Rodney Dangerfield, movie, and now it's, like this is the dark reality behind it all. That's interesting. I'm gonna have to give that a watch, just because the trailer for this like he's magnetic. Like his presence is something else. But yeah, I wouldn't. He's a monster. You can clearly tell that. It's fucking crazy. Goddamn. I haven't been able to watch anything really new, this week, because ever since Luca has come home and November has come home, we have basically been watching movies on a particular theme. They involve, an older sibling having to deal with a new baby being introduced to the equation. And having now watched The Changeling, this week is just all about this. Because in Boss Baby in specific, it's like, in this reality, babies, can like be in your life, like if it's a boss baby, if it's management, just like on a reconnaissance mission, the baby will just be wiped from your memory, like Men in Black style, once their mission is done. So it's like, people don't even have kids the regular way in this world. This world is horrifying. But it's all about this thing that November's dealing with, which is having a baby brother and dealing with, not having the full attention of her parents. Because along with the Boss Baby movies, because there are two, and we've seen both of them, though the first one is more choice. It's purer. It's the one with Tobey Maguire. They did this shisty thing where they got rid of Tobey Maguire, or Tobey Maguire wasn't available, and Jimmy Kimmel wasn't available to be the dad anymore. So instead, we got James Marsden voicing the grown-up brother in the sequel, and that's annoying. But then, of course, there's Rugrats, the movie, the original, the one that introduced Dill to the world, which is very, very much about what November is going through. Like, her ritual every day is like watching this movie and like, being like, or like asking to watch this movie by saying, "Daddy, want to watch, Babies Go Home." That's what she calls this movie. Babies go home. Babies go to the doctor, and then babies go home, because that's what happens, And I guess that's the phase. That's the fad. And then I sat down and watched the fucking Changeling, but I'll let you introduce it.
Yeah, well, before we get to that, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Do you think November has like the headspace or like the wherewithal to understand the choices she's making, or is she just like, I want to watch these because of the bright lights and pretty colors?
It's because of the babies.
Because of the babies. Okay.
Yeah, no, like she'll like ask questions. She'll be like Daddy or Mommy, like why is Tommy sad? In Rugrats, because Dill has stolen his bear or his blanket and is like being an asshole, and he's like singing himself to sleep using a like sock as a blanket or something like that, because the baby's stolen everything. And November will just sit there and just like look at the TV and be like, this is basically how people would watch Ryan Gosling movies like Drive and be like, that's totally me. Like, she's doing the same thing. That's what I think is going on with November.
That's great. That's awesome. But yeah, you've had a whole week of baby type shows and movies, and oh man, this is an interesting one, because I find The Changeling it's a sumptuously shot, it's a well acted, messy swirl of motifs and many, many plot lines. And 3 episodes in, I'm not sure if my narrative ignorance is the result of having seen less than half of the total episode count, or because I haven't read the book that it's based on, or if it's just a very poorly plotted show. I think generally you'll find that the horror genre is confined to films, and it's really hard to come by serialized horror television that isn't either A, an anthology series, or B, a mishmash of genres like horror crime or horror genre or horror drama. Because it can kind of be a slow roll to reveal things and scare people and have a convincing horror plot over 8 to 10 episodes when a 90-minute movie will suffice. It really seems like the only director who has that market cornered these days is Mike Flanagan. Other than that, I can't really think of any. And so it's because of this, I sort of look upon The Changeling as like a rarefied artifact, because despite all of its faults, I probably will continue watching, if only to see what happens, and if only because this is sort of very rarefied air that we're breathing with this show. But yeah, Chuck, what did you think of the show?
Well, it hit really close to home. I'll just put it that way, because postpartum depression is a messy topic, but to just meet it head on, in the way that this movie does, I just wonder where they're going with it. Because if it's just gonna be this thing that an evil coven of witches is driving a bunch of new mothers to do because they're in the wrong Facebook groups, I question that a woman wrote this. You know what I mean? It just reads way too, critical of something that is more nuanced generally. But the source material is very well acclaimed. It has a lot of pedigree from different reviewers that I've read. Because I wanted to, because like you, I have narrative ignorance. I want to understand this better, because the way it's delivered is very messy, and you almost feel like you're watching 2 or 3 different movies at the same time, and then they get blended together. There's sometimes where they're completely separated, and then there are times where it's the narrator from that weird PBS documentary has showed up in the Lakeith Stanfield stuff, because it's all part of a continuum of generational trauma, right? And and trying to deal with the messy questions of do we what don't we remember from our childhoods, or what don't we understand correctly about our childhoods? It's very interesting stuff, and there are some certain things in here that I think are handled very well and are gonna be why I stick with it, despite the complete nightmare fuel that it is for me, as a new father. But yeah, I don't know, there was a lot that I could relate to, and then at the same time, there's a lot that just made me cock my head and go, okay, but they still have me. I haven't jumped ship yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sort of in the same boat. It's weird because, yeah, I feel like if this was a movie, all of this sort of breadcrumbing that they're doing would be fine, because by the end of the film, we would know, the answers to everything. But because this is a TV show, we just have episode after episode of non-answers. And, just so people understand, how slow this is moving, I'm gonna read the plot synopsis for this show off of its own website, because none of this shit has happened yet. And so you would think this is a spoiler, but it's not. It's literally the synopsis they're using to sell the show. But here it is. It says, set in an alternate New York City, a father and husband searches through a magical world for his abducted son and missing wife. And so, that's what the show is, and none of this, we hadn't gotten the answers to those questions yet, presumably. And what is all this about an alternate New York City? What does that mean? And it's just very strange that they're really, really just slow rolling the plot here.
Yeah, because most other shows would have tipped the hand a little bit more about the supernatural elements of it, or like that mirror world would have been crossed into by the end of the first episode. But instead they really get you centered in on who the characters are and what their reality is, because it's already kind of askew. They're very weird people. And if I'm reminded of anything, it's actually Brand New Cherry Flavor, but it's a little less esoteric, a little more approachable. You don't have a woman vomiting cats, and things like that. But I think we're getting to like that kind of gonzo territory, because there's only 3 episodes of this out, correct? Yeah. And at the end of the 3rd episode, spoiler alert, Lakeith Stanfield looks at the camera and just goes, "Witches!" And it's like completely serious, because that's exactly what's at stake here and what is exactly going on. It's the witches on the message board. So if you were going to explain the narrative plot of this, like, how would you describe it? Like what is like actually happening here?
Well, it really all depends on because what I thought the show was going to be is it was going to be like a sort of Rosemary's Baby type thing where, this woman, this mom would like slowly go crazy over the course of 8 episodes. And I was very surprised and delighted at when episode 3 started that wasn't the case, because they really start off episode 3 with a bang.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, okay. So instead of waiting until episode 8, we're going to do this now, and we're going to just get this out of the way. And so what I think the rest of the show is going to be is essentially like, he's probably going to, that guy at the group who like claimed he wanted to buy the book, there's something weird going on with that guy, and that's very strange. And then like, why is he filming the group? That was all very weird. And then I'm guessing what is happening here is because if people don't know, the book, the Changeling, and then the book that he reads about fairies, they're very, very related. And a changeling in European folklore is basically a fairy that is left in place of an infant and is stolen by other fairies, basically. And so that's sort of, I guess, what I think is happening is basically their son was stolen out from under them and replaced with some sort of artificial baby or fairy. I don't know if they really want to go that gonzo with it. And then he's gonna have to go find them now. And I don't know where that place is. If it's some sort of alternate reality or if it's literally just he has to go to Brazil.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, because I would hope that eventually it's just going to go like the China Melville route, and okay, now we're in Gonzo Ferry London, Gonzo Ferry New York, whatever it is, and just keep it. I don't know. I don't want them to get too up their own butt about it, because then this is going to really turn into like Beau is Afraid on television. They need to like find a way to get the urgency up, and I guess like they're there, because now like where episode 3 leaves us is with Lakeith Stanfield basically under the belief, he believes that his wife has murdered his baby and then has disappeared. That's like what he's like left with, and she has done that or been driven to do that because she believes that the baby has been replaced with something else, so it needs to be killed. And what if she's right? And I guess that's kind of the question behind this. It's like, it's not postpartum depression. She just knows as a mother that there's something wrong with this thing that's pretending to be her child. So I wonder if we're going to get into her perspective a little bit more in a later episode. That would maybe help, because it's going to get a little like What Dreams May Come if we just follow Lakeith Stanfield through this, because it's unbelievably sad, the scenarios that we're put through, and it's really pathetic, like the way that people have to treat him. But like I can't imagine going through something like that. But like to this show's credit, the horror elements, that shit really works. When she fucking
Yeah.
grabs that hot kettle, that metal kettle with her bare fucking hand, and you just hear that sizzle. God, that's good shit. Like, that fucked me up. That's like as good as Evil Dead, the new Evil Dead movie that just came out, and that's kind of the vibe. Because like that's kind of that's the question: is she possessed and influenced by something nefarious, or is she just aware of something nefarious going on? So there still is some mystery to it within all of that. But how weird is it gonna get? And how weird should it get?
I think they are gonna get pretty weird with it, because it's almost like, how can you not? Because what they're gonna try and attempt to do is tie all of these flashbacks to the present day stuff. And so how can you not get all cuckoo bananas with it, with the past, if you're trying to do that? Because the other thing that we haven't even mentioned yet is that Lakeith Stanfield's father presumably also went to, either was replaced himself by a fairy or whatever, or went somewhere, went to some gonzo alternate New York for a while and then came back, because he has that like weird box that says, what does it say on it? It says like
Improbabilia.
Yeah, Improbabilia. And it's like, what? Because I mean, obviously, I think what that means is it's basically stuff that he's brought back from like his travels to like this weird alternate New York or whatever. And
so like, doesn't this just kind of feel like a side, like this has a lot of spiritual energy similar to Shining Girls, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah, very much. Yep.
What's up
it
with
also
that?
Reminds me of like because I think where we're eventually going to go, because if you watch the trailer as you're showing it right now, you can see some sort of glimpses of episodes that haven't happened yet. And what I'm assuming is going to happen is Lakeith Stanfield at some point is going to go to Brazil, where his wife met that old woman witch. And I think at that point, this show is gonna get like very much like that. What was that Jude Law show that we both really liked, where he went to that island?
Oh, The Third Day.
Yeah, The Third Day. I think we're gonna get into like that territory once that happens, or Wicker Man territory once that happens.
There was a recent movie called The Old Ways that this kind of reminds me of. That's more of just a straight up demonic possession thing. Because yeah, this is European folklore in Latin America, and that's kind of interesting how they repurpose that in that way. But I think there's maybe just something universal to the idea that supernatural things come in and take your children, which just gives that just reminds me a lot of The fucking Witch, which is now a movie. It's a movie I haven't watched since my son's been born, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle watching that movie ever fucking again. Yeah. Now that I think about it, Jesus Christ. But where does this sit as far as TV of the moment? Like post Succession, like we're never going to find something quite that excellent very easily. Does this have the potential to be a Pantheon level show, or is this just going to wind up being another serviceable entry on the Apple TV Plus lineup?
I think, I think it'll be fun. Ultimately, the fun sort of show that you watch in the lead up to Halloween. I don't know if it's going to really be any more than that. And, despite wherever it goes with the plot, because I think, we haven't really talked much about it beyond the plot, but there are things about this show that are really strange, as far as like just the way that certain scenes are directed, or certain things people say. I'm just like, was that really the best take that you got? And what I specifically think of is like when he's all chained up at the beginning of episode 3 and he yells, "I am Apollo, god of the sun, release me." And I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, what? Nobody would talk like this. Or even like the final 15 minutes of the third episode, when just the way people are acting and how like strange it all feels, where he goes to that that thing that's seemingly a support group, but then once he gets there, all these people start sharing these weird ass stories about, like, the woman shares the story about how she got the pictures on her phone also, and then the priest says like his computer knew his name or something like that, or his nickname, and then you have that weird guy who wants to buy the book, and you know, it's just very strange. And I just don't know if I'm on board with some of the choices it's making as far as how things are directed and certain performances and stuff like that.
There are some that I would like to highlight, though. I really like his friend, his other book dealer friend. I really like that guy, and especially the final moment that they have together. It's where it gets quite real, you know, and you really see the acting is pure, the writing is pure. It doesn't feel hokey. Like, this felt like an actual interaction that two people who had that kind of lived experience with each other would have, given what we know of has happened to them in the story. And I appreciated that, because then it gets into territory where you're like, okay, is this just low rent Ari Aster on TV, or are we gonna get something a little deeper? And I do see that there's something deeper pumping through its veins, rather than just, ooh, there's a naked person standing and smiling in the corner. Like, they're doing that. They are kind of showing us something. I agree with you, because that support group, there is something wrong with that whole reality that he's in. There's something like you almost think that there's going to be a They Live sort of put the glasses on and see what's actually happening, and then we're all in fairyland, we've always been in fairyland, and that's the big twist. Who knows? Anything's possible.
Yeah. I'm glad that you called out his friend, because I was also gonna call that out. I did like that scene where, because I think a lot of people can relate to that as having that type of friend who he only really jokes with him, and then his friend basically drops the pretense, and he's like, all right, I know that our friendship is basically built on jokes, but I'm gonna get serious with you for a second, and basically tells him not to kill himself.
Yes.
And so yeah, I think a lot of people could probably relate to having a friend like that, where their whole relationship is sort of built on just jokes. And then also the scene where they're in the bookstore and the woman tells him how to hold the baby or whatever in the harness, and then that was really, really good. So yeah, everything with his friend is really, really great, and yeah, I like all that stuff. And it's such a weird, such a unique character to have two guys who are rare book dealers, and they somehow make a living doing that, and they live in New York City somehow, but it's a unique character traits.
Well, but to that though, it is very unlikely that he and his girlfriend, the wife, could afford to live in the home that they have, even though it is very simple and humble. This is New York City we're talking about. And she's a librarian, children's library. I don't know, maybe. That's the thing. You do have to have a master's degree. You have to be well credentialed to be a librarian. But they're not making that kind. Well, he does make the comment that they need her job, to survive. Basically, that is mentioned at one point. But I did want to point out that there's something that I observed that I have to that has me curious, is the fact that it's not just her that reacts that way to the baby. It's other bystanders. Other people are put off by the baby. And initially, the impression is, oh, people are just snooty and don't like this guy changing a diaper in public, because it's gross. But then it's what if? Well, wait a second. What if it's other people can tell that it's a changeling?
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I like that. I like that aspect. Yeah, because I had completely forgotten about that. Yeah, the changing in the store, and
because that's relatable. There's not always a diaper station, and sometimes the diaper stations have cocaine on them.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that is very interesting thing you noticed, because yeah, I did not pick up on that, but yeah, it's definitely seems to be that way. And that's, I mean, that is one of the pluses of this show, is it has the restraint to kind of either keep those things in the background or not be so overt with them. Because I really did like all the stuff with like the pictures on the phone. Like that was really like genuinely creepy. And then just the other woman at the support group, when she said that she was experiencing the same thing, and then they did that like slow zoom on Lakeith Stanfield as he was listening to what she was saying, and sort of realizing that maybe my wife wasn't crazy. Yeah.
And then the way that lady just like stands up and just fucking goes, it's like, it's not a real baby, or like whatever the line is. You're just like, oh my god, like this is fucked up, man. This is no good. Because, like, let me tell you, I don't really sleep very much, either because of that little kid or because I am, like, looming over him to make sure he's still breathing. Sure. Like, it just goes with the territory. But, yeah, like, this is just, it has a lot of synergy, a lot of good, genre mixing. I just wonder where, like, all this adult contemporary fantasy stuff, like when is the rubber going to hit the road? At what point is there going to be like a piece of furniture talking to people? Because of course, like, is this like the Wizard of Oz is the ultimate, version of this. But from what I understand from like looking at reviews of the book, if they hew to the source material, there's probably not going to be a happy ending here. So like, I guess this is the question I put to you if you're going to keep watching it. Do you think they killed the baby? Did the baby actually die? Or was it just a monster?
Well, I would imagine that the real baby is still alive, and somewhere out there. And the other thing that I guess we have to keep in mind with this show is, from all accounts, it is a series. It's not a limited series. So
it's ongoing.
I think so. Yeah,
wow.
I think it's sort of it is intended to be an ongoing series with sort of I think there's sort of a TBA hanging over its head right now as to whether or not it'll actually get renewed for a season 2. But they got to have that hook for season 2 would be my guess. And what I probably think will happen is he'll get to the point where he is about to get like his resolution, or about to get his final sort of answer, and then it'll do the cut to black thing, or it'll do the Lost thing where it just cut to black. And so I guess we'll see. But yeah, I think that we'll get some answers. We won't get all the answers. And yeah, I mean, to kind of bring us to close here, my sort of final question was, will you keep watching, or will you drop the show, or will you even wait until all the other episodes come out before you continue watching to see kind of what other people say about it? What do you think?
Well, I'm probably going to keep up with it, because thanks to you, I now have three months, through that Best Buy promotion, which was quite the boondoggle to get working, let me tell you. I'm going to stick with it. I'm interested. I might have to take a few weeks and like stock up, because these come out week to week now, because I do need to. I kind of am in the mood for some For All Mankind, even though we're probably not going to be getting a new season of that for some time, given the writer's strike is still on. But yeah, I guess I'm here for it, and if other people have Apple, they should probably check it out as well.
Yeah, same. I will probably continue watching. I mean, it is pretty low commitment. One episode a week between 40 and 55 minutes, I think typically is what they've been running. And so yeah, it's pretty low commitment. So I think I will kind of continue with it. Just as I said in my intro, just because number one, I want to see what happens, and number two, it's just a weird thing to get a horror series that isn't directed by Mike Flanagan.
Yeah,
and
or
we'll be getting one of those this year too. But yeah, it's just a strange thing.
and that isn't American Horror Story, because you talk about like all of the awful tendencies that are just like the popcorn and potato chips that are his, like those shows that, what is that? It's, what are their names? The guys that do that again, American Horror Story.
Oh, is it Ryan Murphy?
Ryan Murphy,
Ryan Murphy?
and then there's another dude who's along for the ride. Yeah, Ryan Murphy. Like, he has such horrible tendencies that I always turn up for, but this does none of those things, and it in fact is, yeah, wonderfully restrained, but it is still gorgeous to look at. But there are certain things that haven't paid off yet. The threads haven't fully connected.
Yeah.
Moving on to the mentionable, you got to have some fun on the Midway. You got to go to the fair. What was the Minnesota State Fair like, Matt?
Yeah, so I went to the state fair this week, and I think about, I mean, this is huge every year. Minnesota State Fair is one of the biggest in the country, and I think it's up there with like the Iowa State Fair as sort of like the two biggest, I want to say. And yeah, I think about 2 million people turned out this year, and yeah, it was pretty nuts. And what you always go for is the food, and so yeah, had a lot of really, really great food there this year. I think the two that I highlighted in the pictures were, I got this thing called my wife actually got this, the Crunchy Balboa, which is basically, picture a Taco Bell crunch wrap, but with the filling inside is like a Philly cheesesteak instead of like taco stuff.
I wondered what that was. That looks pretty good.
Yeah. And then the other thing I got was this fried green tomato BLT sandwich, and that was really, really good. So,
yummy.
yeah, it was really, really great, and yeah, I had a really good time. And yeah, if you most states have them, so if you have a local state fair, go to them.
See, 2 million people, like the North Dakota State Fair acts like it's a big deal when they have like 300,000 people visit. Because that's the thing, like when you look at the food that's available to you guys and you look at what we have, it's pathetic. Like our state fair is a joke.
Yeah, corn dogs.
Yeah, everything. We have corn dogs. You can get them like by a yard long corn dogs, my friend. So I'm here to report from the dirty poor side of video gaming, because Game Pass gave me access to Starfield on like midnight on Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever it was, and I installed it, and I got through like I got off the planet, I got into space, and then it all just died. You know, like the game just, like my 980 Ti with 4 gigabytes of RAM just kind of said, sayonara, sucker. This ain't happening. If, you know, Cyberpunk is as new as it can play, basically. And this is, you know, the come to Jesus moment as far as that was concerned. So I was like, you know what? Let's see what this whole cloud experience is all about. So, because I was able to get it, you know, right onto my Steam Deck that way, you know, at like 23 frames a second, you know, kind of a laggy response. But cloud on my PC, really, really fucking good. You know, for a 1080p streaming. I had never done, you know, streaming gaming before, but it was pretty much indistinguishable, except for the fact that you have to wait in fucking line. If it's like 5 or 6 at night and you're trying to do it, you gotta wait like a half an hour, because there are people just camped all day long streaming it, I'm assuming, you know, because like you're just trying to find a way to like idle their way past the check, because it'll kick you if you like just leave it for too long. So I did that. Because I was trying to do some things that YouTube had directed me to do, like, because there's lots of find this really rare ship right away in Starfield, and I was like, all right, let's go try and find it. And I do this thing, and the note that I'm expecting to find doesn't drop, and that just annoyed the shit out of me. So I just kind of dropped it, because I kind of caved, and now it's on this thing now, and it runs really well. And it's surprisingly well, even though it's all on low settings, it looks just as good as Fallout 4 does. you know, which I think that kind of speaks to, we're all playing different games here. If you have a, you know, state of the art, you know, like up to date graphics card, my God, there's probably like everything probably looks beautiful. But if you're playing it like even on streaming, some of those characters look really funny. And you know, in the way that everything is rendered is just looks questionable because it's just so fuzzy and muddy. And I think that's the biggest complaint I have about the whole cloud gaming experience, because it's not really tangible. There'll be times where I'm just like walking, minding my own business, and the whole like what I'm looking at will just artifact. And like a bad graphics card, but that's not what's going on. There was just a glitch in the pipe from the server that's actually playing the game for me. Because, and that's another thing. If you're doing that, you're not playing a PC version of the game. You're playing like an Xbox. They're streaming Xbox gameplay. I'm assuming it's like console.
Yeah, it's like
gameplay.
There's like a server center somewhere that is literally like streaming the game off of like a server for you, like an Xbox or like an Xbox One X or something like that.
Yeah, so like Google, that's like Google Stadia. We all laughed at them, but they were the only the only way I was going to be able to play it, because my graphics card is finally at the point where it just needs to, you know, go sit on a shelf and collect some dust. You know, but at the same time, really functional, you know, so far, and looking forward to giving it more time. But
yeah, same.
God knows when I'm going to have the time, you know.
Yeah, I put a little bit more time into it, and yeah, I think, gosh, those opening couple hours are very slow. But once you sort of get off the first, not the mining planet, but once you get off like the first
Jemison, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, the actual like first city, then stuff starts getting interesting. And so yeah, I've been enjoying it a little bit more than I was, and but yes, definitely not the best looking game out there, even on high settings. It's funny how, as you said, the NPCs in the game almost have like tiered appearances, where all of the voiced NPCs look fine, and then all of the NPCs that just say citizen under their names are like just garbage, like absolute garbage.
I do want to say one thing though, as far as like what the game itself, like why it's got me. It's like what Star Citizen was supposed to fucking be. Like the fact that Star Citizen is still like, you know, like what's the vaporware? That's the term.
Yeah.
Like, and Bethesda's just like, oh yeah, here's our version of that. Because like I've played things like Elite Dangerous and like that kind of thing, but the space combat in this, once you like, it's really intuitive. It reminds me of FTL. You know, it's like it's if FTL and like Elite Dangerous got mixed up, and I really enjoyed it because like the dogfighting in this is really good. The combat in it, I haven't really gotten to unlock the full potential of it, but it's almost, I don't know, do you find it clunky? Because I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically Fallout 4, but without VATS, which kind of sucks.
Yeah, that's the annoying thing. Because even the outer, what is it? Yeah, the outer worlds? Is that what it's called?
Outer Worlds, yeah.
Yeah, that has its own like version of VATS that it has working.
Oh no, is it time to wrap up?
I think it is. I got a little November girl here.
Yeah.
She's got her own cell phone. It's an old one. Oh, that actually is Mama's phone.
Oh
no.
no.
I have to go figure out what's going on here, folks. But yeah, we'll reconvene next week. And yeah, take care, everyone. Thanks for watching.